Good morning, everybody. It has finally stopped raining. I'm going to give you guys a garden update now that it's semi-dry enough to even get out here and walk. That's a little tarragon plant. You see the maple bloom lying in there. We have a big maple tree across the alley from us. And it is shedding. You'll see that when we get over to the garden. We've recessed these bricks to make it easier to mow. I planted all of this in wildflowers and don't have any germination yet, except for catnip, which comes up everywhere. But I expect this to be full of flowers here not too long. Looks like a squirrel's been digging there. There's the asparagus from the last time you saw it. I guess it was a couple of weeks ago. And those little flowers on it are just about ready to bust open, and the bees will be all over it. Got some pretty good picks out of this patch this year. Got to get in there and do a little bit of minor weeding, then all this mulch that we've raked over will be raked back into there and let it go. But there's still a few young spears, and we could get in there and probably get another meal if we wanted to root around and get the little ones. And the rhubarb is set up its bloom stalks, and it's getting ready to flower. So over to the garden. You can see how last year's spinach has really popped up. And I set my broccoli out, and it's doing really well. And everybody thinks that I crowd my broccoli, but honestly, we get really good yields planting it so close together. And then this is a big broad row of sunflowers, and they're all starting to come up. So this is going to make a pretty border to the garden. Hopefully it dries off enough to where I can mow the grass. And then this, at the end of the spinach, this is just what I'm going to call a salad row. And there are two types of lettuce planted in there, some spring onions, just a lot of different things that we're just going to be able to pick and make salads just right off the land right there. Be fun. So we have some basil planted and some cilantro that I still have to let mature a little bit in that flat before I plant it. And look at that parsley come up. That's last year's, and it's getting big and bushy. So the onions are doing really nicely. They like all this water, and up on this raised bed they don't drown. And then this is a half a row of kale and spinach down at that other end, just to keep us going. And then we're doing the sheet composting. Look at all the maple bloom. Those are getting ready to be tilled under as soon as it dries out enough. So we'll just run the tiller down, till all this compost in, let it break down, and then we will just rake it off into the rows, probably on top of the tomatoes to feed them. Only planted 5 tomato plants this year. Got an early, a mid, and a late season. So we'll show you some of those. And when it dries out enough too, I'm going to get out here and dry some steaks. So along the back side here, I have a bunch of zinnias planted here right outside the shop. And you see they're starting to germinate, and they make just a huge wall of beautiful flowers here. So then we have the peppers. Just one row of peppers, and this is some St. John's wort that Kim planted last year. And it only got about 3 inches high last year, but this year it looks like it's going to come on up and bloom. And the part of the St. John's that you harvest are the flowers. So it looks like we're going to get some blooms on these. It makes a nice hedge. And over here I have some beans down next to this bean trellis. And I can't really get out there to show you, but I see a couple that have started sticking their heads above the soil. So we'll just leave them alone. And they'll cover that trellis, and we'll get a good pick of beans. But that is about it for this year. And over here, these are some Stellas that Kim planted She actually transplanted these from the place we used to live. And you see how they've spread. And then some lilies. And then that is Monarda, it's called. Bee balm. That's a little lilac bush. She took a cutting off of our little lilac and stuck it in the ground, and darned if it didn't root. And then she's transplanted these hostas from other parts of the house and set them back here in the shade, and they're doing really well. And then those are ferns that we brought with us from the old place, and they're really starting to get established. So yeah, I haven't gotten my grass planted yet, but I'm going to, as soon as it dries out enough to rake this all level and seed it. I have a couple of bales of compressed straw that we're going to be covering it with. But that's it. That's the garden as of right now. It's a dreary day, and we have had nothing but rain for about the last 10 days. I haven't been able to get out here and do anything, but I'm glad I got all this planted before the rain started. Kind of busted my butt and got it all done. But I'll be showing you guys some clips as the garden grows. So you guys have a great weekend. It's Friday, and if you can get outside, do so. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks.